In this lesson, we will learn about Entra ID joint device registration process. We will go through the entire registration process for a device to join to Entra ID, and when the registration completed, we will learn what information the client and Entra ID store to be used for the future authentication and authorization process. And finally, we will conclude our lesson with the review questions. The first step in Entra ID joint device registration process is user ID token retrieval. It happens when the user clicks join this device to Microsoft Entra ID to trigger a system level join which activates cloud authentication provider on the client computer. The Cloud AP plugin prepares to configure the option for the Windows client device to use Entra ID credentials for authentication, which prompt the user to provide the credential. After the user provides the credential and click on the Sign In button, Entra ID will hash the password provided by the user and compare it with the password hash of the user stored in Entra ID. If they are equal, then Entra ID may require the user to provide MFA. After the user provides MFA, the user is authenticated and Entra ID will generate the user ID token and send it to the client device. Upon receiving the user ID token, the client device generates device keys, which contains the device public key and the device private key used to sign authentication requests and prove device identity. It also generates transport keys, which contains the transport public key and the transport private key used to securely receive sensitive data from Microsoft Entra ID. Unlike registered devices which store these keys in the user context, in the case of Entra ID joint devices, these keys are created and stored in the system context outside of user profile and tied to operating system instance and often protected by a trusted platform module (TPM). Next, the client device constructs the device registration request to send to the device registration service of Entra ID. The request contains the user ID token, the device public key, the transport public key, and the attestation data if TPM chip is available. Upon receiving the device registration request from the client computer, the device registration service in Entra ID validates the user ID token and it creates the device objects and marks it as corporate, which means the device has higher trust level and is eligible for compliant device policies, BitLocker enforcement, and device-based conditional access. After that, it generates the section key and encrypts it with the transport public key and sends it to the client device. Finally, it generates the device certificate and issues it to the client device. Here are what happened at the client device. After receiving the encrypted section key, the client device decrypts it with the transport private key to get the section key and store it in the TPM chip. Next, when it receives the device certificate, it installs the device certificate in the personal certificate store of the device. Finally, Entra ID stores the following information in the device objects for future authentication and authorization requests. The first information is stored is the device ID, then the device public key, and the registration timestamp, OS and platform info, user association, and the joint type is Microsoft Entra joint. Let's conclude our lesson with the review questions.